All right, welcome to another episode of A Sage Named Simone. So today I want to do things a little differently. I did not prepare notes. I sat down and I asked, what do I want to talk about today? I just knew I wanted to talk about something. And so the topic today is dreams. What does it look like to be in harmony with your dreams? And why are we talking about that? I think I know I'm in a season right now where I'm experiencing that. I'm learning that like it's a full body yes, which is a phrase that I've been learning more recently. When I'm trying to make decisions, choices change. Those are hot topics for the season we're all in right now. And so when I'm trying to make a decision, somebody was like, well, is it a full body yes? And at first, I didn't know what that looked like or what that meant because I would be so much in my head. And I'd be like, well, this, well, what if that? And so it's the contemplation, the back and forth, the confusion. And what I realize is the closer we get to being in harmony with our dreams, being in harmony with our purpose, because I think most people's dreams are to live out their purpose, ultimately, however that looks. And can't speak for everybody, but my dream is to live out my purpose. That's what's important to me, which also takes me back to a conversation of values that I was talking to my life coach about. What are your value systems? And now that's become a topic that I've had to like write out, seriously go in tune with. And serving a purpose, like living out my purpose, is definitely like a number one value, and having a space to do that. So all of this is going to wrap around, but I'm going to go back to the full body yes. And so in order to get in touch with a full body yes, you have to nurture yourself. And very simple phrase, but what I mean by that is I'm thinking of the nervous system and how our nervous system serves as like our communication from spirit, from God. And if our nervous system is out of whack, we start getting alerts for things that are not important or not real. And so like that speaks to anxiety and the fears. When we go out, when we move around, we feel anxious or something happens and we feel anxious. It's one thing to feel anxious. I just got in a car accident and now I'm anxious about driving. Like that makes sense. But if you haven't been in a car accident and when you're driving, you're always panicky. Or if, I don't know, you leave the house, every time you're scared to leave the house, you're worried that something bad is going to happen to you and nothing bad has ever happened to you. So it becomes like irrational fears. And the irrational fears really point to all the ways that our nervous system is out of whack, and not just having the fear, the thought, because there's also other psychological things that could create this paranoia in you. But in general, if I am anxious all the time, if my body is receiving signals all the time, I'm not in alignment with communication with spirit. Like I'm not going to be able to hear God. I'm not going to be able to be in tune with the harmony that can exist in my body. And so when I think about what does it look like to be in harmony with your dreams, I think about the full body yes. And the only way we can get more in touch with our full body yes is to treat the systems of our body that are our points of communication. And so I've gotten to the point now where I can feel the full body yes. I may know it's a maybe, or we'll think about it, or it's absolute no, but I felt a full body yes. And so when it happens, it creates this new confidence in yourself that you'll be able to make these decisions when the time comes, that you can make the decisions and you have the understanding to know what's right for you and what's right for your soul and your soul's purpose. And so even saying that, I was thinking about, I was talking to this lady one time. She's a spiritualist. And she was, I was talking about this interaction that I had with a person. And they were talking about something. And she was like, well, what did it feel like when they said that? And I said, well, she was like, where did you feel? I said, and it made me like really nervous, like anxious. And I felt myself kind of shrink. So she was like, where did you feel it at? And so I thought about it, and I was able to identify that my body reacted to what they said, that made me really uncomfortable. And she was like, "Where did you feel it at?" And so I was like, "I felt it kind of in my chest area, more like around my heart." And she was like, that's a point of communication. You were uncomfortable, and your question was, is it your anxiety, your fear, or was it communication? And so our body signals to us when things are not safe for us, when people are not safe for us. And so I've started paying attention to when that happens. Because it's not just people, it's situations, it's circumstances. I think about like leaving my job, and probably the 2 months leading up to when I finally made that decision, I was getting these really bad headaches. I was a lot more anxious than I used to be, or than I had been in the time frame. And I had just come off of this really like peaceful, joyful kind of energy after the holidays, and before I went back to work. And I got on this routine, and it felt good and it felt healthy. And as soon as I went back to work, the headaches started. The emotions, the sleeping, it just, everything that I've ever felt intensified all in that season. And I felt it in my body. So, I'm going to the doctor trying to see, like, am I having headaches for a reason? Is all this, just trying to figure out. But it was really just a tension of me knowing and feeling that pull on my spirit that it was time to go. It was time to make a change. And when we don't make changes when we're told to, then we start to see these things, this discomfort, dis-ease, result as disease in our body. Like we start to feel it in our body. These sicknesses, these things manifest in our body. And so I'm not a scientist, so I can't be like, well, this, and that. But I do know as a human, as a person who's experienced it, there are some sicknesses that I know that I've carried because of the things that I carried that I didn't need to, that I needed to let go of. And so, yeah, when we're talking about a full body, yes, there's a process of, so I think about all these Instagram quotes that are telling you like how to be and how to live and how to do and, making better choices for yourself. But what I realize is it's a full journey to even get in touch with your full body, yes. Your intuition, to know what it is that's important to you, what you value, and to get more in touch with your soul. And so it's a journey. It's a whole journey. And I think when I think about what I want to do, what purpose I want to serve, I want to support people on their journey of getting back in touch with their nervous system. And I don't know what that looks like because, I'd have to really sit and think about the journey that I went on. And honestly, I would want to know, like, I think about my classmates and different people like that who were kind of alongside the journey. And I honestly would want to identify the commonalities between our experiences to see how it is we got to get in touch with our full body, yes. And so, yeah, I think that's how we understand what harmony is in our lives and in our bodies. And so having to go on that journey and having to kind of rebuild the structures around me, I had to kind of tear everything down and start over. And that's where I am now. And I feel different. Like my nervous system is, I don't even, like this version of myself, I haven't experienced since maybe I was a child, and maybe I've never experienced her. I have never experienced this version of myself. Let me be honest. I have never experienced this version of myself. I've never experienced so much joy in being alone. I've never experienced so much joy in going after a dream, even though I don't know how it's going to turn out. Getting in touch with my faith and believing that this will work out to me. Even my dreams are more vivid. My dreams are vivid. My meditations are quick. Like I don't have to meditate for 30 minutes to an hour to calm my body down. I just got to decide to come back and be present in the moment and what's happening. And I start to feel better. So I've learned to manage my anxiety to where I honestly forget I ever had it. But, it shows up sometimes. And yeah, I mean, even when I go to therapy now, my therapist is like, we don't really talk about your anxiety. And I'm like, I don't really have it a lot. And so, yeah, the nervous system really, like when they say, what's the phrase everybody's saying about the nervous system? I forgot, but there's a phrase going around that everybody's saying, about like resetting your nervous system. And what that looks like is releasing things, and rebuilding in order to get back in touch with a part of you that knows. And so I'm going to do a shameless plug here because that's what Center Sage is about, which is what it's a sage named Simone. That's me talking. And then Center Sage is my herbal remedies business. And it's really about getting back in touch with your heart. It's about getting back in touch with the things, the the spirit of things, the soul part of you, that can lead you on a path back to yourself. And once you come back to yourself, once you return home to yourself, I think we're always doing it, because we're always evolving, we're always changing. But on this journey of coming back home to yourself, you get in touch with a part of you that knows, because it's connected to something higher beyond you, beyond this moment. It goes to a place of creation, like the creator. And so it's been very mind boggling for me, life altering, because I'm a skeptic and I don't believe in anything. I mean, I believe in God, but I don't, when people come to you with all these different healing modalities and things, and I'm just like, is it safe? I don't know if I believe in this. I don't know if I believe in that. So, like, my process was literally having to upend a lot of the fears I had around my spirituality in general and how I wanted to show up as a person. And not because my family was so adamant about ingraining certain things into me, or Bible based things into me, but that is the history I come from. That is the background I come from. And that is the world in the United States that things are kind of aligned with, accustomed to. Is the teachings of Christianity and things like that. And for me, I realized that I didn't have to denounce what I'd known to fall more aligned and into my authentic journey. And so that's what it looks like for me. And I think it looks different for everybody. But that's what I mean about, like, when you reset your nervous system, there's a part of you that you connect back to that knows that that is beyond you, that's much bigger than you. And when that starts to happen, you start to make decisions differently. You start to dream again. You start to believe in something bigger than whatever it is that you're doing at the moment, or whatever it is that you're doing that you no longer want to do. You start to believe that you can do something different. And it is a process. I just want to reiterate that because I had a lot of dark days in that process, and I'm here now, and I don't know what the future holds, but I know the future holds something that I need to get to, that I want to be a part of, and it doesn't look like what it was going to look like if I hadn't made the decisions that I made. And then if I hadn't went on the journey of resetting my nervous system, of getting back connected to my spirit and the pieces of my soul, I wouldn't be here. So I think about soul loss, and I don't want to butcher the practice, the spiritual practice, but it's curandrismo. I probably said that wrong. I'm gonna go ahead and say I said it wrong. But this idea of soul loss. And so, like, over time, as things happen, whether it's traumatic or perceived traumatic or however you look at it, there are pieces of your soul that you lose along the way, just life experiences. And so there's this idea that, or not even idea, it's a practice of calling your soul back in. And there are people who do this work deeply, where they do soul retrievals for people, and they help to really get people back in touch with their spirit. And so I remember when we learned about that, and it just kept repeating in my head, like, soul loss, soul loss, soul loss. So I thought about the most traumatic experiences that I had had, and I realized that something major changed in me after I had that experience. And I may not have realized it at the time. There are some things that are so big in our lives that happen that we know we shift after it happens. But then there are these subtle things that kind of hide in the shadows of that we may not even remember happen. But the more you quiet your mind, and the more you're intentional about the journey, those things start to come up too. And those things really tell you why you have the thought process you have in the first place. How you got to one place when you were somewhere else. And so I'll give an example. When I was younger, So I think about one of the major things that I experienced was when I started first having my panic attacks. So I knew that shifted me when I first had started having my panic attacks. But why it shifted me was because I have this fear that I'll lose my mind and I won't have any control, and that's just my fear. Like that is my, everybody has their worst fears. They'll end up alone, they'll do this. Mine is that I will lose my mind and I won't mentally be here. And so my fear when I had my panic attack was like, oh God, this is it. This is when it happens. And I had to learn over time and through therapy and through going on my healing journey intentionally and getting more engaged with the shadow parts of myself. Was when I was younger, I witnessed a family member who I had seen one way. They were very profound. They were very, they had a personality. They were very religious. They had a personality that was very strong. And they were who they were, and their rules were what their rules were. And you respected them. You respected their leadership. They were profound. I'm gonna use the word profound. And I think at some point, not sure when it happened, but the next time I saw them, they were in a different mind state. They were dealing with schizophrenia. And it scared me as a child. Like, I didn't know it scared me, but it scared me because for me, I saw this version of them and then I saw this version of them. I didn't see this, in between process of like, here are the signs. This is when it starts to come up. They need to get help now. Like, I didn't see that process. I saw, black and I saw white. I didn't see the gray area. And the gray area to me is probably where I would have got a better understanding, and not projected fears onto myself that this would happen to me too. And so, yeah, it may not have, for me, it wasn't about it being a specific diagnosis. It was just the fact that I wasn't going to be the person I knew me to be, and I was not going to have any control. And yeah, I was going to need to get help. Like that just became a fear of mine. And so I think about when that started, and then people would say to me like, oh, you're having a mental breakdown when I started having my panic attacks. And I, almost didn't go back to school. It was like, oh, you're having a mental breakdown. So then that, further confirmed, okay, this is when it happens. And so then there was a fear of everything. Like I wasn't just fearing, oh, I'm feeling a little anxious. It was, what if this makes me anxious? What if that makes me anxious? What if I'm constantly in this state of anxiety? I'll never get better. I'll never feel better. Scared to go outside, breathing, your breath changes. And it's like, I don't feel like I'm getting enough air. And it's all kind of things, and it interrupts your entire life. And so I started realizing some of those deeper rooted fears were not mine. They were not my experiences, and they would not be my experience. And even if they were, there's nothing I can do about it right now. So yeah, I watched all of those things resurface. I watched them play out in my head as I made these changes, and my nervous system it shocked my system. So the headache stopped. As soon as I left, the headache stopped. But there was the emotions, there was the depression, there was the shift in realities is really what happened. And as the realities were shifting, it's almost like living in two worlds at once. And so I'm like, tethering any line is going to be confusing and it's going to be hard. But I never thought about the emotional and spiritual toll it would take on my body. And so I think the best thing that I realized that I needed to do was keep going. Like, don't stop there, keep going. And then at every turn, when something new popped up, when a new fear, whether it be a spiritual fear, because there was a lot of fear around like my spirituality and what I would be doing, and is this okay to do? Is that okay to do? Like, am I succumbing my soul to eternal damnation? Like, what am I doing here? And so after I'd gotten to a point where I've accepted this is who I am, this is how I want to show up, then whenever my body got weak and my nervous system was off, I saw those fears came back up again. And they didn't just come back up as a thought, it came back up as a whole body takeover kind of vibe. I don't know how to describe it, but I just became, when fear enters your body, it changes you. It shifts how you show up. And so I had to learn how to kind of get comfortable with fear, how to deal with fear in order to work through a lot of that upheaval, and how it affected my nervous system. But the best thing I did was to keep going, because it did get better. It did change. And I don't even feel like the same person who was fearful of what was going to happen if I left my job and started a whole new life and shifted things. And how am I going to have money? How am I going to do those things? And what am I going to do? And is this the worst decision I've ever made? And I still have some of those thoughts still come up. But I'm like, girl, we're doing this. You know, it's more of like, before it might have been a full body takeover. Now it's just like a thought that comes in and goes out. And I'm like, no. But I think what happened is I've become in harmony with my dreams. Like, I've decided this is the path, this is the purpose that I was created for. And however it unfolds, it unfolds. But being flexible to how it unfolds, but being committed to this journey, committed to the full body yeses, committed to being in harmony with my dreams, committed to serving the purpose that I desire to have, or getting closer to that, or understanding that. And so once you commit to that and you start to do the work of healing that nervous system, you start to get more comfortable with making decisions. And so honestly, I would say that that's what this week is about, is that we're at a point of we're comfortable making the decisions that we need to make for our life in this new phase. Because, you know, you can make decisions when you're in a comfortable place that you've been for a while. It's like, you know, your yeses, you know, your nos, you know, your maybes. But now, like, you know, when they talk about your new life will cost you your old one. So now that you've given up your old life and you're moving into your new life, how do you trust yourself again? And so building that trust again has been a process. And so you know, we live in this box with all these imaginary walls because none of it is real. You know, what is real is what you decide to, and how you decide to live, and who you decide to be. That's what I believe. But, you know, somebody told me, like, once you push down that wall, like, you'll realize it was kind of wobbly, and it's not as hard as you think it is, or it's not as scary as you think it is on the other side of it. And it's kind of like it's invisible. It's not really there. You just think it's there. And so it's all these limitations, all these limiting beliefs, all of these ways we've been conditioned to think and believe that we realize don't really sit with us. Like, why do I do that? I don't really want to do that. Or why do I believe that? I don't really believe that. I know in my heart of hearts that that's not true. That doesn't apply to the way I see life. And so you have to start living by that. And that's another task, because people who've known you for a while, they know that old version of you, and they may not be as comfortable with this new way you've shown up. And not in a sense where they're talking down to you or anything like that, but they may not know how to be in a way that supports this new version of you. And I don't necessarily think it's people's responsibility to do that. I think it's your responsibility to adhere to this new version of yourself. And you can communicate whatever you want to communicate to people, but I think our responsibility is to this new person that we've decided to show up as, and consider what they need and communicate what they need, but not have the expectation that everyone will shift because you did. So anyway, back to the imaginary walls. What I imagine is a container. And so, you know, when I'm thinking of my values and this new self and this new way of being, and I want to stop saying new self, because I think it's just always been who I am that I just wasn't as in touch with. But now, like, I can't deny her presence, and I can't deny her influence, and I just can't deny her, because that's who I want to be. Like, it's like, this is who I've always wanted to be. This is who I've always wanted to show up as. And here I am in this moment, and I get to do that. And so that's what that feels like. But it feels like I'm creating a container now. And so once you decide that you want to live in harmony with your dreams, it's almost like you need a new container. And that new container is like telling you where your new limits are, if you like those limits, if you want those limits, if you need freedom over here. It gives you a new home to exist in. And so we all know when we outgrow situations, it's time to move. And so that's what it looks like now. Instead of moving into a new container, though, because I think that was the issue I was having at first, was like, you leave one container and people try to put you into another. And it was like, no, I don't like that one either. And so now it looks like building a container. And that to me is what being in harmony with your dreams is about. Is creating a new container that can hold you, that can hold this new space that you're in, this new commitment that you've made, and that can keep you from the things that are not in alignment with you and get you better with the idea of my yeses mean yes, my no's mean no, my maybes mean I'll sit on it and leave it at that. And so, yeah, there's a new confidence that comes with it. I feel like I'm experiencing a new confidence. And yeah, I'm very proud of myself. And I think that's a place that a lot of us want to get to. I mean, I know I did. I didn't always feel like this. Like I felt like I was a good person. I felt like I did what I was supposed to do. But there was always something missing. There was like something that wasn't connecting. And so I would start to engage in different things, search and do things that, engage this other part of me. But I realized like I'm a highly creative person and I don't even like crafts. I don't like doing stuff like that. But this new version of me doesn't mind. As long as she's creating the craft and she's doing it. And I kind of like to do it by myself, if I'm being honest. But yeah, like I'm exploring a lot more of what that looks like and showing up that way. And so for me, a lot of people talk about once they get there, this is what I had to do to get there. But I feel like I'm still getting there. I feel like I'm still on that journey. And so my goal is to be as transparent as possible that I don't have all the answers and everything hasn't worked out how I thought it would, but everything has worked out as it needed to. And some things are still being unfolded in this moment, in this journey, in this process. But the one thing that I know is that I'm committed. I'm committed to living this new life and existing in this way that I want to exist. And embracing this more, like being able to be in touch with a full body yes to me is such a powerful thing because it's just, I think a lot of things benefit from you being in a state of confusion. And it's really saying I no longer have to exist in a state of confusion because I'm connected to something that speaks to me constantly, that a new container that holds me in the ways that I need to be held, that knows how to speak my language. And yeah, I feel like, when you meet people or you meet experiences that speak your language, something shifts in you because you no longer feel like an outlier. You no longer feel like something's wrong with you. You no longer question who you are. You just exist as that. And so, yeah, I think the main thing that I wanted to convey today that I didn't know I wanted to convey was that it's okay to create new containers that can hold you. It's okay to decide you don't want to do it like this anymore. And be patient with yourself as you make that journey to make that shift. Because it is a shift. It is not okay, I'm deciding I'm not doing that anymore. And then you walk out the door tomorrow and you're a whole new person. This whole new person has to feel comfortable in your body. They have to trust that you mean it. They have to trust that you're committed to this. And so when you start wanting those old pieces of your soul to show back up and remind you who you are and to show you your light and to show you what you've always dreamed of. And I always think of an inner child because I think when we're children, that's kind of where we start to lose sight of who we were created to be, like what our purpose was. And children know when they're safe and when they're not. And so I thought about this journey as me having to invite my inner child back into my body, into my space, into my vicinity to let her know like it's safe. And so there's a lot of play that comes with that. There is a lot of emotions. Children allow their emotions to flow. And so you have to get comfortable with that. You have to get comfortable with the changing of seasons. Because I also think that's something that children understand is change. And so, yeah, that was what we were talking about today. So I don't know that I have a question. I guess the question would be, what does it look like to be in harmony with your body for you? Like what is a full body yes? How do you know it's a full body yes for you? And I guess I didn't explain what that feels like in my body. For me, a full body yes does not leave me in the what ifs phase. I'm not questioning things back and forth. There actually are no real thoughts running through my mind. It's more of an energy I feel. You know how you get really excited for something? Not like impulsively, like I got to do this now. but like you get really excited and you get warm. And it's like everything quiets on the inside of you. That's how I know what my full body yes is. There's no other question that's needed. It was just a statement and that's it. My nose, I do start to shrink. I honestly will start the question game in my head when it's a no. But I've learned that sometimes that's not a no. Sometimes it's triggering an old pattern or old way of thinking, an old response. Like I've been triggered, and so it may be like, let's just sit on it for a minute. But when it's a no, I think when it's a real no, it's just a no. I don't even have a thought with it. I'm like, nah, I don't want to do that. And even nah, I don't want to do that is no. Um, but I think I've not always felt comfortable saying that. It's sometimes it's hard to be like, no, and leave it at that. Like, no is a full sentence, period. Um, and so I'm always trying to caveat my no's to be like, well, if we, but I'm learning to honor that no because the more I honor that no, the more I can honor when it's a yes. And then the more that I don't have to sit in the space of confusion. So, yeah, that's what I wanted to talk about today. Let me know your thoughts. Give me some comments, some conversation. Talk to me. Let me know what's going on. And I'll see you guys next time.